Hi, I'm Allegra with Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and I'm here today to talk about being solution oriented versus being problem oriented. And if you want to re listen to this, you're always welcome to. This will be put up as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, which you can get wherever you find your podcasts. And a little bit about me if you're joining me for the first time. I am the author of 4 books, all on productivity and time management. They're all short reads, and they're designed to be read in 45 minutes to an hour, and when I say read, I actually mean done because they are workbooks, so you're gonna learn as you go, because brain science shows that when you apply what you learn, it gets in there a lot better than if you just read it and then never look at it again. So we have these workbooks here, and I go live every Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern to talk about all things productivity and time management. And sometimes there are things that have to do with personal life, sometimes it's professional life. Often it's both, as in today's topic about being solution oriented versus problem oriented. But before I talk about that, I am just going to pick a card from my handy dandy deck here that I love. It always gives me something thought provoking, and I never know what it is. So let's see. Don't forget, a person's greatest emotional need is to feel appreciated. H. Jackson Brown. Don't forget, a person's greatest emotional need is to feel appreciated. It's interesting to me that the adjective greatest is what's big and bold here. By the way, feel free to comment. I do see the comments in the chat, and if you are listening to the recording, you can also comment then, and I will see them after the fact. A person's greatest emotional need is to feel appreciated. That's interesting. I don't know if I agree with the emphasis of greatest. I don't know if that's someone's greatest emotional need. However, it's definitely important, especially when it comes to relationships. So I guess that would be my clarification. For me, I wouldn't say my greatest emotional need is to feel appreciated. I think my greatest emotional need is to feel calm. However, when it comes to one's relationships, absolutely. I would agree with that. When my greatest emotional need, so I'm talking about this quote by H. Jackson Brown. A person's greatest emotional need is to feel appreciated. Absolutely, in relationships, appreciation is what keeps long-term relationships healthy and two-sided. I think that especially in long-term relationships, whether they are familial relationships or friendships or love relationships or relationships between yourself and a child, appreciation is so important. When you are around someone every day or almost every day for years at a time, you need to know that they feel like your presence is appreciated and vice versa. And I once heard a tip that criticism should be given in private, whereas praise should be given in public. And I think that's really important. In fact, my husband, daughter, and I, we always say something before we eat our meals together, some sort of gratitude for the meal itself and all the good things in our lives. And sometimes I will add to that prayer, and thank you to my husband for what he does to bring this food to the table. And I will sometimes thank my daughter, and sometimes I will thank myself. And I will also thank the nameless, faceless farmers who are involved in bringing that food to the table. But I did notice that when I said this thank you to my husband in front of our daughter, he actually got a little choked up and he said, "Oh, thank you for recognizing me in that way. So, I guess what one should take away from this quote, don't forget a person's greatest emotional need is to feel appreciated, is to say to yourself, "Hey, my long-term relationships, my long-term friendships, is there someone that I need to appreciate?" I am a big believer in sending cards, especially for instance, I recently went on a trip that was, uh I sang at Carnegie Hall with this choir that I'm a part of, and you can see here's this little postcard thing here. And whenever I do something like that, if someone had helped me make it happen, and there were many people who helped me make this trip happen because there were many of us going traveling in the choir, and not all of us could pay 100% of the cost. And I we all asked our friends and families, "Hey, if you can donate, donate." And people did. And so I sent thank yous to all of those people because I greatly appreciated their support in this endeavor. And so I'm a big believer in thank you cards and writing actual physical letters, and just saying thank you to someone in public is a great way to make them feel appreciated. So, I like that. I love little thought-provoking questions. I have a daily practice of answering a writing prompt. I have this book of writing prompts, it's fantastic, and it always makes me think about things in a different way. So, I highly, highly recommend doing that. Okay, so today's topic, being solution-oriented versus problem-oriented. I just got back from a trip with my family, a little summer vacation, the 3 of us. It's the only time of the year we've actually traveled together this year. I've been traveling a lot by myself for work and also for personal projects. So it was nice to go with my family, and we went somewhere that we go frequently, which is we went to Honolulu, which is where part of my family is from. And shout out to anyone in the 808. And we go to of course, when one goes to Honolulu, you go to the beach because it's one of the best things about the islands, and we have our favorite beaches. I've been going to Honolulu my entire life, and this is a beach that we go to frequently, and there's this windsock that is out in the water to mark a high point of the reef for boats so that they don't ground themselves on the reef. However, swimmers and kayakers like to use it as a goal to swim out to or to paddle out to. And I've never swam out to this windsock before. However, for some reason, I was feeling motivated to do it on this particular trip. And it's not very far. It's far enough that it's a good workout. It's a nice challenge, but it's not so far that you feel like, well, as long as you're in reasonable good health, you can do it. So I actually went on a swimming website and I found that it is roughly 500 meters round trip. So 1,500 feet round trip, which is hard for me to wrap my head around. 1,500 feet, exactly what that is. I don't know. I think that's like what, a third a third of a baseball field? I don't know. A baseball field. Third of a football field, something like that. I don't know. So I decided to do this swim, and it was a very windy day. I do the swim out to the windsock, no problem, super easy. I think it took me, mm, maybe 10 minutes, not that long, constant stroking. Now, here's the thing. Part of the reason why I felt comfortable doing the swim on my own was because there were probably about a dozen people that I could see heading out to do this swim. And so I was like, "Okay, great, there'll be people around me, no problem." My husband and daughter are on the beach. They're like, "Great, go get it. We'll watch you." And so I felt comfortable doing it. However, I am not a fan of open water. And the windsock was just the beginning of open water. And so most people, what they do is they swim out to the windsock and then they stand on this high rock and hold on to the pole and take a break before they swim back in. Well, I am swimming out and I get about 80% of the way out when the last people who were in front of me, who've been standing on the windsock, kind of hanging out, catching their breath, decide to swim back. And so I'm very aware of the fact that there appears to be no one else around me as I'm completing this swim and getting to the windsock. And I'm just entering where on the other side of the windsock is open water. And I just am not comfortable with open water. So instead of taking a break and or climbing on the rock and, taking a physical break or even just treading water there for a second and enjoying myself, I just decide to head straight back in because I'm not comfortable being out there alone. So I get back, start heading back, and the moment I turn direction, I can feel this is gonna be a totally different swim than my swim out was. I am not just making progress. I am reaching for every foot and really kicking, and I'm trying not to look at my progress. However, I have to check because there is a current here, and I wanna make sure that I'm swimming in the most efficient direction rather than getting blown off course. Well, the first time I check, I feel like I've been swimming for more than 5 minutes, less than 10 minutes, but I am not anywhere near the halfway point. I'm probably only about 15% of the swim back. And because at this point I have been swimming for 15-ish minutes constantly, I'm feeling it, and there's a current now and the wind, and this is a lot harder work than the swim out was. Fortunately, this is a lifeguarded beach, which, hey, when you go to the beach, be sure to go to a lifeguarded beach, especially if you're traveling somewhere. Again, I know this beach very well. I've been going to it my whole life. But if you're going to a beach that you've never been to, don't swim out if it's not lifeguarded. Just uh, people die all the time off the shores of Hawaii, and if you look into any sort of tips on this, one of them is only swim at lifeguarded beaches. So, this beach is lifeguarded, there's lots of people around, I know my husband and daughter look at me, so I'm not feeling super concerned. There are catamarans and outrigger canoes and, people on stand-up paddleboards coming into the beach, and, there are a couple times where I'm thinking to myself, "Maybe I should just ask someone for a ride in. Like, what do I have to prove?" But again, I don't feel complete I don't actually feel unsafe at this point. So I think, "Okay, no, no, I can do this. I can do this. I'm gonna keep doing this." So I continue to swim, and I'm just doing the traditional free stroke, and the next time I look up, I'm certain I must be at least halfway in, and when I look up, I'm not. And at this point, I'm starting to get a little agitated. And so I just keep going and I decide to keep swimming, but at this point, I'm a little bit tired, so I'm kind of switching between free stroke and side stroke and backstroke. And my husband later told me that that was the point where he was getting a little worried about me because he could tell I was tired because I was switching up my stroke so much. And I'm doing this and I'm getting more tired, and I'm just because I'm switching strokes so much as I'm doing it, I'm just really aware of my progress and that I'm not moving as fast as I would like to be, and I can feel my heart beating faster. For some reason, at that moment, something my husband had said about being solution oriented popped into my head. And I realized that I was completely caught up in my problem at that moment. My problem was I am not swimming as fast as I think I am, and I'm concerned I'm gonna run out of energy before I get back to the beach. That is the problem, and that's all I'm thinking about, and I can feel my heart starting to pound. And at that moment, I think to myself, "Okay, this is not gonna help me get to shore. I need to be solution oriented." But I'm also, you know, a few hundred feet out to sea. Like, how can I be solution oriented from here? And I decided that the thing I most needed to do at that moment was to calm down. Because as a friend of mine and I have talked about many times, swimming, the act of swimming is not that hard. In fact, the act of swimming is not that different from the act of flailing in water. She and I were joking the other day actually that swimming should actually be rebranded as learning to stay calm in water because that's really the difference between swimming and flailing. And I was my panic was edging me towards the point of flailing. So I thought to myself, I need to be calm. And the thing that will make me calm, that's what I was focused on, being calm, was thinking about my destination, the beach in front of me. And there's actually this tree on the beach that I know of, that my family was sitting near, and so I got onto my back, and I just pictured that tree and me walking up the beach in front of that tree, and I just started doing the backstroke, and I didn't check my progress again, and I just backstroked, backstroked, backstroked all the while, just picturing this tree, and I could feel my heart rate slowing down because the tree was my destination. I knew where I was going, I knew what I was focused on, and just thinking about the tree was calming me down versus thinking about the problem, right? The tree was the solution to calming me down. I had been too focused on the problem. So I'm doing the backstroke and when you get into flow and just time is passing and you don't even notice it? I don't know how long I was swimming at that point, but more quickly than I expected, I hear a voice. "Hey, how you doing?" It's my husband. He swam out to me. And I'm kind of startled by it. I was like, "Oh, you're here. Where am I?" And I look up and I am now only about 50 feet from shore. And we're swimming together as he's talking to me, and I only have to paddle a couple more seconds, and I'm able to stand. And he's like, "Well, I saw you out there. I was worried about you. The it's windy." And I couldn't believe how quickly I got to that point from, I had been at the 80% mark or so when I decided to focus on the solution, and between that and getting within 50 feet of the shore, it only felt like a few minutes passed. I really have no idea how much time passed. And I walk up to shore and I sit on the towel and I catch my breath, and literally I'm barely able to have any energy to sort of take in my surroundings when a lifeguard on a jet ski zooms out into the ocean, followed by another lifeguard on a jet ski only a few seconds later. And for a second, I I was disoriented and I thought to myself, "Wait a second, I'm already on shore. Like, I don't need any jet skis to come and rescue me." Oh, no, no, they were going out for other people. But it had been in the back of my mind that, I might be seeing a lifeguard up close and personal today for the first time in my life after decades of swimming at these beaches. But no, that was not going to happen. But uh, we saw a couple of rescues because between the strong current that this beach naturally has and the high wind that was unusual, people were struggling, and a canoe had to be hauled back in because the paddler was being blown off course. Anyway, it was a it was an eventful day at the beach. However, the thing that I learned was just this difference in being solution oriented versus problem oriented. And it is so easy in our lives to get caught up in the problems and to give those problems a lot of our attention and energy, either by thinking about them or by talking about them, by complaining. I mean, we've all been in situations where we have something, a boss who's not supportive, a coworker that's difficult to work with, a some sort of earning ceiling that you're hitting, or some sort of perceived being held back by somebody, with real or not real. How much time and energy do we give to the problems with our thoughts and our words? Lots. And the thing is your brain can only think about one thing at a time. Like if I tell you right now to, imagine a rainbow and uh imagine a rainbow while saying the words to Mary Had a Little Lamb, that's really hard to do because your brain can only do one thing at a time. Especially like if you know the words to Mary Had a Little Lamb by heart, you might be able to do it. But if you don't, if you have to think about the words, or let's say the Star Spangled Banner or some song that you don't know wrote, you can't do both at the same time. You can't think about that rainbow and think about the words at the same time. It's the same thing with being problem oriented or solution oriented. I could not think about the tree and my destination as long as I was concerned about the fact that I might not have the energy to make it to shore on this swim. I had to put the problem out of my head and solely think about the solution, especially in that circumstance because, my life was on the line. So, the same though is true for our daily problems in life and in work. If you're focused on the problem, then the solution is not going to present itself to you and you're not going to be making real progress on the solution. So, my suggestion to you today is that whatever it is that you're struggling with, I have something in my mind personally that I'm struggling with. Instead of thinking about the problem, think about the solution. And I'm going to actually engage in a writing exercise. Like, what are the solutions to this problem? And then once I write down a number of solutions, I'm going to pick the one that is the most, that is just speaking to me the most, that's the most realistic and the most attractive to me. And then I'm going to spend some time just thinking about that solution coming true and getting into how that makes me feel so that when this problem comes up again, I know exactly where I want my head to go, to the solution. I hope that's been helpful to you today. If you liked or learned or just thought it was interesting, this podcast, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen. And you can find out more about all the things I do at my website, bywdreams.com. You can get my books or find out about any of my courses that I have available there at bywdreams.com. And remember that planning makes everything